Hello, everyone. It's Friday, March 11th, 2022. Your day weather podcast is being brought to you exclusively by Cowboy State Daily, Wyoming's news authority. Visit them at cowboystatedaily.com and on their Facebook page. Here we are, 11 days into March, and it's feeling a lot like January or February out there. The Arctic air, though, is going to ease. We're going to see the easing of this Arctic air here in the coming days. One rule of thumb. In this part of the United States, in the Rockies, the High Plains region, when Arctic air masses begin to move out, there's a big change in air pressure, and there's always going to be a period where the winds pick up. The winds will cause cold wind chills and blowing snow initially, but it'll be the wind that pushes out the Arctic air that allows us to warm up. So we're going to be getting warmer, but we're going to have some blowing snow in some of the higher roadways and interstates, especially today and into early Saturday. Now, the March sun will help, but you got to watch the mornings and the evenings when you get a lot of black ice, when you get blowing snow. The pavement warms up, the snow blows across, makes the road wet. That wet road, once the sun gets lower in the sky, starts to ice up. So take it easy. Watch out for black ice if traveling on some of those roads and highways. We see mountain snow and a few snow showers in the plains late Sunday night, with a quick moving front. It's a classic March front that brings a few inches of snow real quickly to the mountains, a few snow showers on the plains, and is gone. The next system we're watching is going to arrive into the region, first into the Pacific Northwest Tuesday and Tuesday night, and then into the rest of the West as we get into Wednesday and Thursday. A lot of question marks with that system. We're still not really sure if the Wednesday-Thursday system is going to be anything to write home about, or if it's just going to be a minor system. Another storm a few days later, in the early parts of the following week, that's something that we'll be looking at. So the pattern does look really active. Could we see the Aurora Borealis later this weekend and early next week? It's possible, and we'll tell you why. So for you photographers out there, the sky watchers, are going to want to watch to the north later this weekend and early next week, and we'll tell you why. The latest snow and ice coverage shows how far south the snow has gotten here in this past week, across especially the west and the western high plains. And you can see the extent of that snow cover pretty far south. Temperature-wise, you may be wondering, okay, what's the temperature been like for March so far? Well, you can see how cold March has been. The first 4 days of March, if you can remember, was actually really warm. But the last 4 days have been really cold. This is how March is trending so far in terms of temperatures relative to the 30-year normal for the first 10 days of the month. Now, you might be wondering, what's it like for the year to date from January 1? For January 1 through yesterday, look at how much of the United States and Canada has had a colder than average pattern so far since January 1. That's a lot of real estate. And you could see the coldest temperatures relative to average have been centered in the Great Lakes and the Northern Plains states, the Eastern Dakotas, Minnesota, really, really cold. Look at Texas. Relative to the 30-year normals, it's been a really cold start to the year so far, with only the southeast and the central valleys of California anywhere close to above average. And these are not very far above average. These are just basically average to slightly above. So 2022 starting off a bit on the chilly side. As we look at the long-range trends, we'll show you what is going to unfold here over the next week. This is today's chart. We've got this wave out in the Pacific, but high pressure nudging into California. The Arctic air mass is right here, and it's going to start to move this way. This will allow high pressure and a westerly flow of air to move in over the weekend. Notice, though, we've got those lines packed tight together. That means a strong jet stream wind is slicing through. That's what's going to be making it windy in some areas over the next 3 days. And here are the wind gusts. These are the potential wind gusts between now and Saturday afternoon. And you can see the heart of the wind gusts are right on I-80 and I-25 in Wyoming. So this is where blowing snow is going to be a factor here over the next couple of days, as winds could be quite strong. The gaps, the mountain gaps in Montana, very, very windy as well. Windy along the front range of the mountains from Cody to Meeteetse, and some pretty strong gusty winds up in western and South Dakota and North Dakota as well. So be ready for those increasing winds, blowing snow, but warmer Chinook conditions. By Saturday morning, the heart of the Arctic air now and the green and purple is shifting out of the Rockies and into the Midwest and the eastern areas of the U.S., where they're going to get quite the shock to the system to much colder conditions. Chinooks now forming in the Canadian Rockies, coming in behind that. Looking forward, this is the upper level map for Saturday night into Sunday morning. Here we have a low coming into Washington and Oregon. It's a small system, and it's being driven along by a very quick moving jet stream. So instead of the storm taking a big dip into the Four Corners, what it will do is it's going to race through about like this. And as it does so, this is by Sunday afternoon, the low will come through, bringing with it Pacific moisture into the northern and central Rockies. And the end result is not a lot of snow, but several inches of snow will fall in the mountains of Colorado, Wyoming, back into Idaho, Montana, and then back into the Pacific Northwest. So not a big weather maker, but enough to freshen up the ski slopes a bit and add a little bit to the snowpack. By Tuesday, a full-fledged Chinook is in gear. Temperature readings are going to be significantly warmer, especially here, much, much warmer, even warmer here in the Great Basin areas as we get that push of the Pacific air coming on by. By Wednesday night into Thursday morning, though, we've got this disorganized next trough coming in with another little low behind it. These two systems here working in unison is what's making the modeling having a really hard time understanding what's going to really develop, because it's conceivable we could end up with a closed low right here by Thursday morning. But if the systems stay separated and not merging, well, it's not going to be a big weather maker, but we're going to see some rain and snow in the area Tuesday night, Wednesday into early Thursday. But we're going to put a question mark on this again. We'll have a much better idea, obviously, on Monday, but the next weather maker is the middle to the end of next week with this system. Beyond that, this is by the 22nd. A larger, more organized storm over eastern Colorado is showing up on the European model, with a nice ridge of high pressure off the west coast helping to form that. The European model is also somewhat in agreement with the American model for basically the same time frame, although the American model is a day earlier. So we've got this system Wednesday and Thursday. The next system for the Central High Plains and Rockies is around Monday and Tuesday of next week. So the pattern is going to stay busy. The good news is that in between these storm systems, we don't see Arctic air, but rather milder Pacific air, more typical March-like temperatures. Nothing that's going to be warm for too long, but not as cold as it's been lately, thankfully. Speaking of the Aurora that we mentioned earlier, we had a coronal mass ejection yesterday and overnight from a sunspot in the northern hemisphere of the sun. What we're showing you here is a satellite that detects these coronal mass ejections. And you see that brightness, this haziness right here? Basically, this is a coronal mass ejection, high energy plasma coming out of the sun. Now, a lot of times, these miss the Earth completely. But if they glance the Earth or they hit the Earth directly, they cause an outbreak or the Aurora Borealis. This particular coronal mass ejection is actually Earth-directed. So there's a possibility as early as Sunday and into Monday of next week that by the time that wave arrives, we could have some auroras that get pretty far south. Not saying they're going to happen this far south, but the possibility is there. Predicting auroras is a very tricky proposition. But when the coronal mass ejections are directed towards Earth, the probability goes up. This is the aurora forecast through today. And where you see the green, the aurora oval will be in these areas here where it normally is this time of year. However, we may see an expansion and a push south of the Aurora Borealis late this weekend and early next week. So for you sky watchers, for you photographers out there, kind of keep an eye on this potential for later in the weekend and early next week. Go to spaceweather.com. That's a great resource to be able to keep track of this. You get the aurora forecast here that I'm showing you from NOAA, as well as some updates. So sky watchers, watch out for that. We'll update you on Monday on what it's looking like beyond the middle to the end of next week with those next two storm systems coming our way. In the meantime, enjoy the slow moderation in temperatures.